this is Colleen and Sean with Chats with Colleen.
Hello.
So it's been a while since I've had you here.
It's been a little bit, yeah.
I don't know how long, but I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Today, in a
Happy
couple
to be
minutes, we have Andrea Hosch joining us. She's a realtor, a real estate attorney, an executor of a trust company, a mother, probably 5,000 other things that I'm forgetting because
she is every woman.
She's everything. So she'll be here to fill us in on everything about her. And so I'm excited because I haven't had an attorney.
I guess you haven't actually.
And I'm excited that it's a female.
Yeah, I mean, her emails so far have been fun. Like, I was communicating up to this moment. So I'm kind of excited to see where this goes as well. She seems like she'll be sweet.
Very nice, very sweet, very down to earth, very, easy to understand.
Like very casual too, like not super like
because my podcast is casual, so and we like to talk about anything. So we do keep it organized, but we talk about anything that benefits anybody, and especially the guest that comes here, and that's like more important. So that's what I try to tell people. It's for them. So don't be afraid to join us.
No. Never be afraid.
So it's still hot as hell. And then what I do.
It is hot. Right now it's 90 degrees outside.
Wow. Yeah. And I know up north they were talking about, because in Cincinnati where Chris is, he said it was like 58 one morning.
That sounds amazing.
I was like, oh, that just sounds like so refreshing.
Yeah.
Here you just, whatever you do, you can't cool off. But what I do want to talk about is the last month or so, people have been on explicit rampages. I don't know in your business or in your life, but people have been on rampages.
People have been nasty.
I'm talking about screaming on the phone.
Okay.
So, and it's like
I've had like people be
uncalled
nasty, but
for.
I've not had people screaming.
And so, I mean, I can just see it in like the world, because the CPA who sent out a blast email, which I'm not, disclosing anything, but if you use them, that if any clients or any potential clients, I should say, called and screamed at him or any of his staff, they would immediately be unbecoming a client and be charged $350.
Which is insane.
Which is insane. Never heard of that. So
I don't know how that's legal.
I mean, I have people yell at me all the time, and
you do. I've heard it,
and it is. And the past couple weeks, it's bothered me, and particularly Wednesday, I had a lady who screamed at me, and she was just talking down to me, and I was like, well, you know what? I'll put you down. I'll call you every month, or I'll email you. I prefer to email you and see what properties you have, what's going on. It's pretty simple, and maybe they have 8 properties, so it's manageable.
Yeah.
And if she's the admin for this person, it should be manageable for her. So what are you going to call me for? Why are you going to do it? Why are you not answering me? I'm like, well, you haven't given me a chance to answer. And I'm like, oh my God.
It doesn't sound like she should operate a business.
It doesn't sound like she should be involved. So I scheduled it out every month for a year. But then I said, maybe you won't be working there by then.
Yeah, literally.
I mean,
So she doesn't own the houses then?
No.
She just works.
She works for the gentleman that does. So if you don't understand something, I understand. But why people are just out of line by yelling at people?
Yeah,
gets worse. Friday, the last call, maybe 10 minutes to 5, some person called, represented himself as somebody else to the person that answered the phone.
He impersonated someone.
He didn't impersonate. He said he was calling on behalf of this person, but he wasn't calling on behalf of that person. He was buying that person's house. But to my understanding, when you buy somebody's house, you're not like buying that from them. You have like a realtor. So who says I bought that house from this person?
No one. Unless
you came to me and said, oh, I bought the house from Colleen because we're personally doing it together. Otherwise, you would just be like, oh, I bought this house in this neighborhood. So he's like, well, I'm buying his house. Okay, well, what's your name? Well, he wouldn't tell me his name. All I got was his phone number, which showed up on the caller ID. So don't know if it's his real number.
Yeah.
Wouldn't give me his email, but he would give me his realtor's number or email. What turns out, he was buying one of the houses from one of my clients, and to get worse, I have an inspection. Everything says it's fine and in working order. He has something that says something different. Well, send it to me. But if I don't know your name, there's no reason for me to be talking to you.
No, not at all.
So he wanted... This is like a $1.3 million house. So it's just to show, I don't buy a house that much. I don't want to be overextending myself. He wanted a water heater. He wanted the guy to buy a water heater for him. This went on for an hour. This went on to almost 6 p.m.
And how were you involved? Like, what? Why
I
did he
don't
reach
know.
out
So
to
I
you?
was saying, okay, I probably could be your mom because you sound like he was in his 30s. So like my suggestion is if you're having second thoughts, maybe you should just not buy this house.
Yeah. It doesn't sound
If you
like
want a water heater,
you're
and I almost got
qualified.
to the point, I say, come over here. I will write you a check for this water heater to just get off of my line.
Yeah, like actually.
You're like berating me, putting me in a corner, and I don't have anything to do with it.
Is he, and he's not your client at all?
No, he wanted me to write a letter, say they needed this, this, and this. And I said, no, that person's my client. I mean, what do you
Yeah.
think? I don't want to micromanage you, but when are you going to do it?
I'd say, first of all, I'm not part of this transaction. I'm not a realtor. I'm not.
So
like
I just
a
emailed the two
broker.
realtors. I was like, look, after an hour, I'm extremely stressed out.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do with me, but I think he wants a water heater.
He just sounds really young and naive and like has a lot. He lacks a lot of
And he
business
had a
skills
baby in his hands. The baby was
while
crying.
he was talking to you.
Yeah. So I was like, as a parent, I'm
That poor
telling you,
Yeah.
this isn't a good move for you if you're concerned about a $3,000 water heater. And I also
Yeah.
said, well, what happens if you buy the house a month into it? It just stops working because it's old. It stops working. Stuff breaks.
Yeah.
You would buy a new one, right? Because you would want your house and your baby to have warm water to take a bath with.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything. And what if the air conditioner broke?
Yeah. An HVAC.
I just had to have people come over here and repair my air for $1,300 because I want to
Yeah.
live comfortably. You would get the air conditioning fixed, right?
And he'd have to pay for it.
And he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
It's entitlement.
It is entitlement.
And so that's
It's
what's going on.
ridiculousness.
I don't know what's going on in everywhere.
Yeah. It's, you know what? I'll say this. Like, I just think I think money is not as free flowing as it once was for anyone. And I think everyone's afraid financially.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just this fear of like people running out of money and like getting stuck with really expensive big bills for things that unfortunately have always happened in life. But at this time, because everything is so tight, it hits so much harder. And I think it's not right for him to yell and call you
Right.
up
I
and,
understand
like,
he
do
was
that stuff.
frustrated and maybe
Yeah.
he was having misgivings.
But
So
you're right though. Why are you buying that house if you're so
I
afraid?
felt like I should counsel you. I should say,
Yeah.
okay, why are you buying this?
And also, why are you yelling at me? Like,
I have nothing
really-
to do with it.
No,
Because
like,
somebody told him to call me. Okay.
Did you do the policy for the house?
No, I
You
did
didn't-
it. I did the policy for the
Okay.
seller, but
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with him, and we
No.
shouldn't be discussing somebody else's information.
No, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
He sounds very.
Very crazy.
Yeah.
I was warned. I told him I was warned of you,
There we go. Then there you go.
and he was like, "Ugh."
You should have been like.
and I
"Well,
was like, "You're on speakerphone. Why? Because I don't record my calls right now. So you're on speakerphone because
Yeah.
other people need to hear this. Because
I need
I don't,
witnesses."
I don't know what your intentions are
Yeah.
today."
And what did he say when you said that?
He didn't really say anything, but it's, and then he did say at the end, "Oh, it's 5:45. You should be at home with your family." I'm like, okay.
I'm like, then hang up, sweetie. Stop talking to me. How about that? Then I can be.
Very bizarre.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm. Anything new with you?
Just the same old, same old. Yeah, I'm just doing it. We're roofing. We're still roofing. It's going well. It's still kind of slow. I'm not.
Do
gonna
they have
lie.
any calls and damage assessments for the storm?
So, for the recent storm that just happened, there really wasn't a surge from that, to be honest.
But Friday, it seemed like we had Hurricane Debbie come through here again.
Was it like super stormy and
Oh,
crazy?
yeah, where I was, it got pitch black, and
Yeah.
they said there was like 3 inches of rain.
What time
and
of the day was that?
About 6:30.
My gosh, I don't know how I missed that. That's
Yeah,
so
and it
wild.
may have not hit where you were. And then yesterday I was over there again, and it was a
Yeah.
monsoon too. And it felt like it was 3 inches again of rain, like a lot, like really fast.
Yeah.
So there'll
That's
be
wild.
somebody. I've had calls for roof leaks, so I'm assuming the roofers will start to pick up more
yeah.
business when people start. It trickles in later.
That's usually
Especially,
how it works.
it's still August, so we're going into September. Sometimes we
Big
have
storm
storms
season,
there.
Yes, yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a very interesting year, all the same. But it is, it's just, I don't know, the same old stuff, like the roofing stuff, obviously doing the exciting stuff with you, and then doing like some other stuff for a few other companies. It's funny, my side work is actually, it was so slow, and then now it's picking up again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I might have signed up for too much, just like that, which, yeah, it's never a bad, it's like that's the best problem to have, and I realized that. But so yeah. Yeah, I think our guest is here.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So we're going to go grab her. Thanks for joining. So thank you, Andrea, for joining me today. I'm so glad you made the trip out here on a Sunday and spent your time with us.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So we're going to talk about you opening your own real estate brokerage recently during the crazy real estate market. So how has it been, and why did you decide to do that?
Well, so to back up a little bit, I guess I started investing in around 2010. Bought some, rental properties, and was kind of wanting to know some more creative ways to buy them. So I wasn't just using cash. Joined a coaching program in 2015 and became involved with land trust, which I'm never going to talk about a little bit later. And I decided to go ahead and get my real estate license because as I was investing and, talking to sellers and that type of thing, I thought I just might as well be doing this, know how to do all of this myself.
Yeah.
Because even though I am an attorney and I have actually worked in real estate through foreclosures and stuff, I still didn't know, necessarily have all the detailed information for the contracts and negotiating that way and helping buyers and sellers, which I eventually started doing. So after I got my license, initially I thought, hey, I'll just use this for investing for myself. But pretty quickly, because you have to hang your license with someone.
Right.
And right around the corner from me was a Coldwell Banker. So I hung my license there. And it was good that I did because I got a lot of training there.
Right.
That I didn't even realize that I needed. So through that and just some of the things that, they were training and some of the things I had to do like floor time, I started working with buyers and sellers instead of just investors. And I really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. So after a couple of years with them, I went to a couple of different investor real estate brokerages. And that was good too. But then I thought, well, when you're with one of the investor real estate brokerages, you're kind of doing it yourself anyway. You're just hanging your license with them.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, why don't I just do this myself? And then I can avoid sort of the desk fee costs, that type of thing, and have a little bit more autonomy, work completely out of my office there in Longwood. And that's kind of how it developed. I just decided to go ahead and get my broker's license, and some partners that I had been investing with. They were doing a lot of vacation rental management and wanted to expand their business. So they're like, hey, let's join up in a brokerage. You can kind of do the representing buyers and sellers and the odd investor on the, sale and resale of single family residences, which is what I mostly do. And then they are going to do the property management side. So that's what we started about a year ago, and it's taken them a little bit of time to transfer everything over that they were managing. And then I actually, do you know Beth and Kyle Coble?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So Beth went ahead and got her license, and so all that is just taking time to kind of get it into place.
Right.
But that's kind of what our goal is to have sort of a two-prong brokerage. We're going to have they're going to do the property management side, and I'm going to do everything else,
The
probably with regard to
buying and selling,
helping investors and helping buyers and sellers who want to buy their home or sell their home, or I've done small office buildings, listed some commercial land, that type of thing.
Nice.
Kind of for people that also, that's something that they had. I've done duplexes, triplexes, things like that.
Right.
And then we're also, because Beth and Kyle are over in the Space Coast, we have our license through the Space Coast brokerage as well as Stellar. So they will probably as well start, depending on timing. And we're also busy with the different hats that we wear.
Yeah.
That they'll start probably doing some buyers and sellers over there because a lot of times you have somebody with a vacation home. They want to buy another one. So you help them find the next vacation home that you're going to be managing, or maybe you help them sell one. So they'll be working primarily probably in the Space Coast doing that. And I do go over there occasionally, but it's just how much time you
How much
have.
time, and then the area, like they live there, so they know all about the
Exactly,
area. And
exactly.
it's harder for you if you were over here in this Central Florida to know everything about that.
Yeah, and they're a great resource for me when I have helped buyers and sellers over there with purchasing single family. I can always reach out to them, and Beth has a lot of tools being in the vacation rental space, so she can quickly analyze an area and look up a lot of statistics on it just to let us know, because even people that are buying their home, they want to know, hey, what's the resale market like here too. So that really works well.
Nice. Have you seen any changes with that NAR settlement in the way you have to operate your business?
Well, it's pretty fresh, so it just went into effect in Stellar August 6th. It had to be into effect by August 17th, and so Stellar was August 6th, and Space Coast was August 15th. So right now, it's, all of my listings that I had, my sellers, they were, fine to transition just to go ahead and still offer the same thing. It's just that now it has to be communicated differently. So now people are, obviously, as soon as they reach out for a showing, they're asking me, hey, what is your seller offering? And it's just being exchanged that way. So far it's going smoothly. I'm hoping that it's going to continue to go that way because, the majority of buyers really can't typically afford. I mean, they're doing all they can do to save up their down payment,
Closing
pay for
costs.
all the things that you have to pay when you move into a new house,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So I would say the large buyer pool doesn't have the money for, to pay their
commission.
realtor. Exactly.
Right.
So I'm hoping that sellers will continue to cooperate in that fashion because as realtors, we really do bring added value. Even when we're representing the buyer, we're really an added value to that seller as well and that seller's realtor. Because, we're explaining a lot of things to buyers they don't understand. We're walking them through inspection reports that sometimes can be challenging.
Right.
And yet we help them overcome those and see that they're not as horrible as the, inspector sometimes makes it out to be. So we add a lot of value and just, I've worked so hard with buyers, just showing them all over the place.
Well, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. It's your gas, it's your time, it's your marketing. So I'm really hoping that it continues to progress with still maintaining that same level of, sellers are paying the majority of the commission because let's face it, the sellers are typically getting
a large return.
and they're the ones getting the proceeds, the sale proceeds, right? So they're the ones that have the cash. And it just, most buyers, like I said, are putting a lot into their loan and that type of thing. So that
They have to find a balance. It just seems like it was
Exactly.
such a big change.
Yeah.
That a lot of people weren't expecting. And I've interviewed somebody else on it and I'm still confused as to what happened and why they did that after all these years. Cause I've sold houses and bought and I've always paid all the commission and I just knew that was customary and that's how it was.
Well, it was because it was and I'm not going to be able to get into all the details,
Yes.
but there was a lawsuit, obviously, that ended up being a class action suit.
Oh,
And so that's what happened and went on for years. And then it was on appeal, and there ended up being a settlement, and the NAR was involved in the settlement, and anybody that's involved with NAR was bound by the terms of the settlement. So to
There
keep a
you
long
go.
story short, that's what happened, and these rules kind of came about.
wow. Just sounds like a complicated mess that went on for a long time. Since you're an attorney and you said you practiced law only in the past, what type of practice?
Well, I still practice law, so I've been barred for honestly longer than I even want to say, but that's what I went to school for. But I started out in criminal, so I was a public defender over in Pinellas County is where I started out. I went to law school at Stetson, and then I was also Orange County when I moved over to Orange County in 1990. Then I went into, and I'd had a lot of courtroom time doing that. But then I wanted to start a family, and as a public defender, you spend a lot of time in the jail, a lot of time after hours, so that wasn't a good fit. So I switched to insurance defense, and I was in-house for Travelers Insurance for about 3 years or so. So that was a totally different animal. I mean, we did litigation, but it was through hearing masters. So that was interesting, and it actually gave me a lot of experience in Central Florida because I drove all around. You know, we were all the way over to the Space Coast, down to Polk County, up to Jacksonville. So I was driving all over in the area. Over in Lake County, we did hearings and depositions and that type of thing. So that was really helpful in learning the area. I mean, I grew up in Polk County, so I knew that area and Tampa and Hillsborough really well. But working earlier over here and doing that helped me learn Central Florida really well.
Wow, it sounds like you have a vast array of like experience from criminal to insurance. And real estate. That's like, and a mother. So you're like totally well-rounded.
Well, my husband at the time had a real estate foreclosure business. So I also worked with him in that quite a bit when my kids were small, took a little bit of a bit of a break. And then I went back and worked on the administrative side when the firm got bigger. Seeing a lot of that part of the real estate side,
foreclosures.
The foreclosure side. Was interesting.
Very.
I don't like that side as much.
I don't think so. I don't think that's as fun and as pretty as selling houses and showing homes.
Yes.
But I feel like everything that you've learned and been through probably is just given you so much, like a vast array of knowledge that you can be like extremely helpful to anybody.
Hopefully.
You've been helpful to me when I've asked, and it's, like genuine, just kind and genuine and easy to understand.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So thank you. And where do you see the real estate market headed? I know this is like if we had a magic ball, but I know it seems like it's come down a little bit maybe or holding steady. Do you think it's going to continue in that fashion?
I mean, I think so. For years and years, we had historically about 90 to 120 days of inventory. And then when the interest rates, and for so many years, I'm trying to think, the interest rates were holding steady around like 5%, give or take. Mm-hmm. And then later in the 2018, 19, they started to fall. And then we had all that craziness when they were a little bit below 3% and 3% for so long.
Yes.
And that's when we really got short on inventory, and there was all the craziness with multiple offers, and there was a lot more people got into the market with regard to real estate as being realtors because it seemed easy. It's like, oh, you just go out and everything's crazy.
It's easy.
So I think this is like a little painful transition. The interest rates went up, and it's too bad they didn't do it a little more gradually because it kind of shocked buyers all of a sudden. Their neighbor had just sold 3 months ago, and with multiple offers, and then all of a sudden sellers are like, oh, wait a second, what just happened? Well, the interest rates went up pretty quickly, but at the same time, I think it is kind of a leveling out and maybe working to come back to the status quo, which is a little calmer and more reasonable. And prices were like going up so quickly as well because there were so many multiple offers, and all of a sudden there's cash buyers offering way over, or people agreeing to go $10,000 over appraisal. That type of thing. Now we're not seeing any of that.
Right.
We're seeing more, houses are still getting listed as high as the neighbor sold last year, but they're also sitting for longer. So we're seeing a little bit of prices creeping down. I mean, they're always going to get priced where the comps are. That only makes sense. So I certainly don't blame the sellers for still attempting to get those prices. And then it's just a balancing act of, how many buyers are we going to have in that price point? Because now the price really got a lot more expensive because of their interest rate.
Right.
So where it was 3, now it's 6.5%, or maybe closer to 7 sometimes. We've seen maybe a little over 7 even. I think that was like last summer, and even part of this year. So that's, that makes the house a lot more expensive over the long term, and people just can't qualify. They can't buy. Somebody that 2 years ago was thinking they were going to buy a $400,000 house is all of a sudden, wow, can't afford that. I'm more down in the $300,000 range.
And it's hard to find that.
That's a big difference between a $300,000 and $400,000 house. So your expectations have to
come
down, or you just have to wait and
wait until save up money, make more money. I don't know how that happens.
Exactly. Save more of a down payment, so
right?
That you can put more down, so your overall payment is not as high.
That's the hard thing. It's like the payment. And then that's where like I come in with the insurance. Like it's starting to
Right.
level out, but they're really cracking down on the prices because that amount that it costs that person per month can put them over like their payment, being able
Exactly.
to afford it per month. So it's all rolls around together and
Yes.
it becomes like really difficult for some of these people.
Yeah, and I didn't even talk about the insurance part of it. I mean, all that craziness with the insurance going up so much with, is really is just an added thing, and then property taxes too.
Yeah,
Like
property taxes
the last
have
couple
gone
of
up.
years, property taxes. I just got my property tax bill.
I got
I'm
mine
like,
too.
again, seriously? I mean,
It's
so-
gone up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed and I'm like, oh, so it's gone up. My insurance went up too, my property taxes. So in turn, my payment goes up and, and then you get a automatic payment and you're not
Right.
noticing it. So all
Yeah.
the stuff that happens to everybody, I'm like, well, it happens to all of us,
Right.
but I do see people that, try like years ago, 2021, 22, they were buying, the $900,000 houses and they could afford it because the interest rate was like the 3%. And then
Right.
now when everything's backed up, the taxes, the insurance, they're really struggling to,
Yes.
make the payments and because their insurance has probably tripled, their taxes went up because it was, re-evaluated and then any repairs. So they're really having a hard time. The cat was in here. One of the cats just ran out. I don't know what she does. She hides in there and then she wants to leave. So I know that's affecting everybody. So,
Yeah.
and then I did see another article on Zillow and they were saying like to buy a home, you have to make 109,000+ or something like that. And I was like, I didn't know if that was per household or per person, but
It'd be probably per household,
Household.
but that at even 109, it's like, well, what, how much of a house can you
right.
buy?
And
So-
and then how are they going to do that and pay for the food and everything else that they need to?
Yeah.
It's difficult. So, what tip could you give a new home buyer who's looking for a home as a first-time home buyer?
I would say, first of all, the first thing I always tell people when they call me and they say, we're ready, have you been pre-qualified? Because talking to a lender really helps. And you might talk to a couple of lenders, I'll tell people, and see what things you can do even in the short term, because usually when somebody talks to a lender, it's an eye-opener, kind of usually in not a good way.
Right.
Like, oh, wow, I thought it was going to be easier than this. I thought I could afford more. But they can also give you really good tips in the short term of different things they can do, or maybe they need to wait 6 months before they pay this off, or maybe they need to not get that new car until after get their home loan in place. So those are the kinds of things I really encourage them to stop first with your lender. Then even during that time when you're having the lender conversations, I'll set them up on a search just so they can kind of see what's out there. And then when they talk to that lender and they realize, okay, I'm going to be in the 350 range. Then they start looking in that range in the area, their preferred area, and they might realize that that's probably not going to happen, perhaps. So we have to go out a little bit. So it's really about managing expectations and this, and it takes time. It's like, you don't want to just shock them and take them out and say, oh, this is what's in your price range. And like, wait a second, I wasn't expecting this. So I like to go ahead and have them looking at things that are out there in the market. And then they kind of wrap their head around, okay, maybe I need to move out a little bit. How far out can I go? Or what are the most important things on my list? So I do encourage people to kind of, make your list of all your wants and prioritize like what things you have to have and what things you're like, okay, I can live without. Like, do you have to have that 2-car garage, or is maybe a 1-car garage? Or a lot of people, they've got a pool on their list right away.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Is that something you have to have? So I think that's the thing, is just to really start thinking about those things. How our mind works. You sort of, it takes you time sometimes to get to a different place than what you were thinking. So I think that's the most important part. I mean, obviously we want to make people's dreams come true, but we also want it to be affordable. And that's the other thing I was going to say about this market is I feel like it's not like 2008 where there was so much craziness and they were extending loans for when they shouldn't have been. The lenders are still they're being really good in making sure that the people for the most part, can afford it.
Right.
And that's important, and people get frustrated, but that's really for their benefit in the long run.
Right. They're trying to help you. And
Exactly.
they, and I tell them that too, with the insurance, like maybe you shouldn't, maybe you can't afford this house. And I don't tell them that, but I'm saying in the back of my head, I'm sure there's other homes, but I know they feel like, they have their, like you say, they have their expectations up and their hopes, and they want that, and they're set on it. And then sometimes, if being pulled back, going to a different area, looking at something different may be better for them.
Yeah.
And that's where a good realtor is able to help them and not convince them, but tell them, explain to them like all the reasons as to why.
Right. Well, there's certain areas that you look in, and I just know like the taxes are going to be higher in that area, and it's inexplicably, like it's not that it's a high end area. So just let them know that up front, because that's something your lender's going to look at.
Right. And it affects your payment.
Right.
Everything goes down to how much you pay per month. And then it's not set in stone. That's the thing. Like, normally when you rent an apartment, you're signing a lease, it's for this year. But when you buy the house, your payment, like your mortgage payment and your interest, but the insurance and the taxes can change, and that potentially raises your payment. And I've spent hours explaining that to people about the escrow account, even though, it's not what I do, but I'm explaining to them like how it happens, because they reanalyze it, they recalculate it, and the price for that went up. And then of course it has to affect your payment because it's included.
Right.
So it becomes frustrating for them. And I understand it, especially when they're like, this is what I'm supposed to pay per month. And I know that.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah. The taxes and insurance and the escrow is
They're
a
killer.
little bit difficult.
It's difficult.
Especially for first-time home buyers to understand that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And even some that have been in there forever and they never checked it. And then now their payment's gone up, $1,000 because their insurance or their taxes went way up if they were in a hard hit area with that. And it is frustrating for them. Do you sometimes feel that being a woman, do you feel like you're not taken seriously, or does that not affect you?
It's funny. I had looked at that question earlier because you kind of sent me a few questions
I
that
know.
were maybes, and I was thinking about it. I'm like, not really for me. And I don't know. I think I was fortunate. I mean, it was my dad was it was just two daughters, and he was always, you can do anything, So my sister and I kind of grew up thinking we can do anything. Like, it doesn't matter that we're girls.
Right.
And we never thought about it. And I went to law school, and there was, at least half
of course
were women. And so, it was fine. Nobody ever treated anybody any different because you're a woman. And then in the public defender's office, probably over half of the attorneys were women.
Oh, wow.
And when I went and worked insurance defense, I would say half the office, at least half of us, I think there were 8 attorneys. So there was at least 4 or 5 of us were women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I don't feel like with that background that I ever, and then of course in the investing, there's so many great, I started working with Carrie buys houses, and she was like wonderful person to work with. Then there's Jeannie buys houses. There's so many strong women in that atmosphere that I really never, Augie was a coach and he was always very
encouraging for everything.
It was never about women versus men. That never even came into the conversation.
That's
really.
good.
Yeah, and there's lots of women in all the coaching programs. So I really never have felt that way. I'm sure it is out there. I know, but it hasn't. I could say really it hasn't affected me.
That's good.
Yeah,
I'm happy for that, because other people don't have those same feelings, and so that's why I always like to ask power women that question, because sometimes because I felt that way at times, and sometimes I'm like, I know if I was a man, you probably wouldn't talk to me like that.
And it's funny because you are my go-to insurance person.
Oh,
you're a woman.
Thank you.
And then I've got a few lenders, but one of my go-to lenders is a woman, and she's been great over the years. I've used her for my personal residence. So yeah, I think I've just been maybe surrounded by women, and it's never. Luckily, I've had that good experience.
That's good. Thanks so much for listening and joining us. If you haven't already, please share, subscribe, and like our episodes and our podcast. Also, leave a review. It will be so helpful to us, and we would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to join us at any time, we're open to any guests joining us in person and on Zoom. We post and record episodes bi-weekly, so that's twice a month. Also, they're posted on our socials, which is Facebook, Secured Insurance Group, Instagram, Colleen Insurance Lady. This podcast was hosted by myself, Miss Colleen Pacheco, and recorded and produced and edited by Sean Spazzato. Our podcast cover art was designed and created by Norma Pacheco, and our intro and outro music is created by Lounge Bar by Geronik. Goodbye.